Hey guys, Tony here, and it is absolutely freezing outside, but anyway, I know I said I'd reply to some threads tonight, and I saw Bigstar1000's thread on rock and roll books, music books, and if there's one thing that I love besides music and listening to music, it's reading about music. And not only read about music, I also read a lot. Just in general, it's something I've just always loved to do. And I would say reading about bands and stuff is what really got me started. As a kid, basically, I started reading about like the Doors. I've probably read every book on the Doors, the Beatles, things like that. So I pulled out a few. I don't really have books about vinyl per se, mostly about music and bands. So I'll show some of my favorites. I have a ton. Some are put away. Some I moved to make room for more records. Um, and a lot have passed through my hands that I either owned and let somebody borrow and just never saw again. And I have books actually that belong to other people that I've had for years now. So, um, and yeah, just a lot of things that I've borrowed, and I've read some really great stuff. But I'm just gonna show some real quick. Um, Big Star 1000 showed this as well. Lester Bangs, Psychotic Reactions and Carburetor Dung, and it is a great book. Lester Bangs is an awesome writer. I mean, he wrote about music, and he did so with just real passion, real gusto for writing about music. I mean, and just really smart stuff. Just really, he had great taste, and there isn't much that I've read by this guy that I didn't find interesting. An interesting guy, and if you're a music, I mean, he talks in this book a lot about. It's been a while since I've read this one, but just everything. He talks a lot about Lou Reed. He talks about Iggy Pop, The Clash. I think he actually talks about the Guess Who, John Coltrane. Just a lot of 70s acts mostly. Kraftwerk. Yeah, just a great book. Very entertaining. So check this out. I got a lot of books about Nirvana too. It's just a topic that I found fascinating. This one's called Nirvana, the biography, and it's written by Everett True, who was a British journalist, very big in the Seattle scene then, and great writer too. He's written a number of biographies on bands, but this book is, I think, fascinating because it's called Nirvana, but a lot of it is just the history of that scene, and how he was very much associated with Sub Pop and Mudhoney, and it really gives you a sense of what that whole scene was like and about. And this is a big read. I mean, it's about 600 pages, but fascinating book on Nirvana and about Seattle, grunge, and Sub Pop. But check this one out. Now, I've actually showed this book before, but if you're into punk or if you're curious about punk, I would say this is probably the greatest place to start. It's called Please Kill Me, the uncensored oral history of punk, and it's basically written by Legs McNeil and Gillian McCain. But what it is it's all like interviews basically spliced together, and it gives a history of punk basically just through other people's words. There's nothing really written so much by the authors. It's all other people, and it is fascinating. It starts with, it mentions the Doors, the Velvet Underground, then it goes into the MC5 and the Stooges, and from there it goes into television and the whole CBGB scene and all that. and it talks about the New York Dolls and a lot about Johnny Thunders and Dee Dee Ramone, and just fascinating. I must have read this book at least 10 times. Excellent book on punk. Please Kill Me. Check this out, really. One of my favorites. Another great punk book. Written by Michael Azerrad, who he wrote, I don't know if he worked for Rolling Stone or MTV or one of them, but he wrote a book about Nirvana. I think the first book about Nirvana while Kurt was actually still alive. Come As You Are, I think it is. But anyway, he wrote this. It's Our Band Could Be Your Life. And it's basically about the underground, hardcore, American indie underground. And each part of the book, each chapter is about one whole band. So it's not like a long narrative on the history of hardcore. It's more just taking each band individually. So he discusses Black Flag, the Minutemen, Mission of Burma, Minor Threat, Husker Du, The Replacements, Sonic Youth, Butthole Surfers, Big Black, Dinosaur Jr., Fugazi, Mudhoney, Beat Happening. Fascinating book, really essential for hardcore fans, and even if you're not, if you're curious about them. But there you go. Lennon, the definitive biography. This is another big read. I read this years ago now by Ray Coleman, and it really goes in depth into John's life. I've read a bunch of John Lennon biographies. For some reason, this is the one that I've ended up with. It is good, but I don't like how it kind of jumps around in a way. It's not the most, cohesive story, the way it's put together, but it still is very interesting and a good read. But I have read better on John Lennon. Let me get into my Nirvana books here. First off, Kurt Cobain Journals. Now, it's not a book like the others I've been showing, but it is fascinating to read and to look at the whole thing. Kurt was definitely a guy who liked to make lists of records and songs. He was into songs, and his thoughts and everything. It is just a fascinating, really, I'm sure a lot of you have seen this. I'm really glad that I got this. I got it like hardcover when it came out. It was actually a gift from my wife, but just really interesting. And going with that, basically the companion to it is Heavier Than Hell by Charles Cross. This is like the definitive Cobain biography, I think. And he was the one who kind of compiled this. He was allowed access to all of Cobain's stuff. And he kind of compiled this, or wrote this, so they're kind of a companion thing. Later on, though, he wanted to go back and show examples, basically, of all of Kurt Cobain's artwork, because he really wasn't known for his paintings and sculptures. And he put out this, Cobain Unseen, and this is like I'm sure you've seen these about Jim Morrison and Bob Dylan, but they're like scrapbooks where there's all kinds of things in them. Different pictures he drew. And there's a ton of great pictures that, there's a painting he did when he was a kid. Comes with a CD with an interview. All his t-shirts. This is really, if you're into Nirvana, this is fascinating, and definitely it's worth the money. Even like this little, like a notebook piece of paper with a letter on it. So, yeah, really interesting thing about Kurt. So, check that out again by Charles Cross. Might as well show these two. This is the Rolling Stone. special thing about Nirvana. Has every article they've written about Nirvana. I have one like these for Neil Young too, but it's different. Part of a different series. This is more like a commemorative kind of thing. So there's that. This here is Mojo's Whole History of Punk. Hardcover, beautiful book. They did a great job. Ton of great articles and great pictures, and it gives the top punk albums, and really just a fascinating book. Mojo, everything they put out, their magazine, you can tell those guys are just all about music, and usually very good music. And everything they put, there was an issue, it wasn't a book, but I don't think it was a book, about Neil Young that they did that was just gorgeous. I mean, they did a great job. So there you go, Mojo's The Whole History of Punk. Excellent book. Here's another big one, Songwriters on Songwriting. And this covers everybody. There's like maybe a chapter about each songwriter. And it really, I mean, just to run down a few. Pete Seeger, Willie Dixon, Dave Brubeck, Bob Dylan, Paul Simon, Brian Wilson, Carole King, Joan Baez, Donovan, Burt Bacharach, Laura Nyro, Henry Nielsen, Yoko Ono, Frank Zappa, Neil Young, Leonard Cohen, David Crosby, Robbie Robertson. I mean, it goes on, but it's fascinating look into how each person writes their songs. I find a running theme through it is that most of the best ones don't sit down and really write a song. They don't craft a song. They don't try and think of lyrics. These things just kind of come to them. And I'm a big believer in that kind of thing, creatively. So, very interesting book. Another huge read. Another Mojo book, Dylan. Visions, portraits, and back pages. And it's mostly photographs, but there are a ton, just like other Mojo books and magazines. Great articles. It just chronicles his entire history up to now. It gives each album a little review, and a fascinating book with just unbelievable pictures of him and people talking about him. I love this picture here. It's Dylan with the Beatles. I just think that's a cool picture of them. But yeah, great book. Check that out if you're into Dylan, if you could find that. And of course, I gotta mention Neil Young, Shaky, by Jimmy McDowell. And this is a hardcover that I bought brand new when it came out, and it is just beat. It's like, I've read this book like 50 times. I'm at the point where I just kind of open it up and start reading, and I just know it, you know, like I recognize it all. So, there you go, it's another one. And I think that's pretty much all I pulled out. I got a bunch more, but I love reading about music. Really, if you read about a band, it'll really, for me, I get interested in a band the more I read about them. And once you have the understanding of where they're coming from, how their songs came about, what their story is, you just really get a better respect for them, the music, and who they are. So if you're into music, I'm sure most of you guys already do, but yeah, pick up some books about your favorite artists. They're just awesome. I've read a lot of clunkers too, so I'd go on some recommendations, because there's some horrible books. Somebody wrote something quick to try to make a quick buck, you know, but there's some good stuff out there. So yeah, thanks for coming up with this thread, and I hope you enjoyed it. Take it easy.